Gruesome Magazine.
Hey everybody, Dave Dreher here from Gruesome Magazine, joining you once again with one of these special little shows that I'm so fortunate to get to do. And look what is sitting in front of me here. This is indie horror royalty. Look at them. Just look at them. We got J.R. Bookwalter. We got James L. Edwards. Gentlemen, it's so bizarre that we all grew up, reside in the same area. It's just like so strange, but yet here we are. A little bit of background: if you're not familiar with either of these gentlemen, they've been doing this for a long time, and things are special now because they've teamed up on this project called Side Effects May Vary. You can see it there behind JR's head. JR, this is your first directorial effort in how long? It's been decades.
Probably more than 23 years.
23 years. That's crazy. Now, James, you've been directing, right? You had at least one film I'm aware of.
Yeah, I've actually done, let's see, two. I started directing. My first film was released in 2020. But that was, her name was Krista, and then we followed that up with Brimstone Incorporated. But I'd been working with JR since 85 as an actor and screenwriter.
And you have a third in the can.
Yes, that's true. Well, almost in the can. It's can adjacent. So.
Can adjacent. I like it.
The new one is a horror thriller called Trivial.
Nice. Well, that's exciting. Well, maybe we'll get. We want to talk mainly about Side Effects May Vary today. So, but we'll try to come back to Trivial. So, JR, what brought you back to the director's chair? Why, after 23 years, did you say? Why are we suddenly being treated to more JR Bookwalter madness?
Well, I don't know how much of a treat it is, I guess. I don't know. It just, because I spent that 23 years telling everybody that, yeah, I'm not going to do this again. Nah, it's too much headache, too much work. I'm not interested. I did more avoiding it than anything else. Now, that said, I was still, I have Tempe, my Tempe company, and I have MakeFlix now. So it's not like I haven't been doing stuff. I've been restoring the old movies and, doing appearances and stuff for that, going to conventions. It's not like I've disappeared, but as far as me making anything new, that definitely was the case. I think it was, James and I would get together frequently for lunch, and he was always pressuring me like, don't you want to just do it again? Don't you ever think about just going out and making something again? And I'd be nah, it's too much work. Because I kind of left it, moved back to, I left the Full Moon stuff behind to kind of move back to Ohio, started a family, that was kind of like my focus. And now my kids are a little bit older. So I thought, well, maybe, it might be interesting to do. It's not that I guess that I never wanted to do it again. It was just, there's a lot of, I don't want to just knock something out the way we used to do it. I wanted to sort of handcraft something again that, cost money and time and other things. And I don't know, it just seemed like the stars were aligning to the point where I kind of had my MakeFlix business where I wanted it. And I was sort of like, well, maybe we'll make something, just to sell through this outlet that I have cultivated here. So I guess that was.
It seemed to gestate pretty quickly. We talk because we all do live in kind of close proximity to each other. And JR in particular, I talk to you relatively frequently. And it was just like all of a sudden, boom, hey, guess what? I'm making a movie. Hey.
For a lot of people that I don't talk to as frequently who are just outright shocked. Like, what? I have a friend, Jason Paul Collum, another filmmaker who's work I distribute through MakeFlix, and he, we talk every so often, and he didn't hear about that I was even making this movie because I really didn't tell anybody. He didn't know about it until I posted the first teaser trailer back in, I think, May or June. And then he was like, how come you didn't tell me you were making a movie, and why am I not in it? Like nobody knew what we were doing. So.
But you did tap James to be in it, right? James is like the dude.
Well, not just to be in it. He and I, we went to lunch again at the end of 2022, and it was in December, and I basically said, I just looked at him, I said, well, I'm ready. And he kind of like sat up and he's like, is that what I think that means? And I'm like, yeah, let's do something. So originally the plan was to pull one of our old scripts out that he and Matthew Jason Walsh had written for me years ago, but it was a little more ambitious than I wanted to tackle at the time. So I said, well, let's do something else. And I one of my favorite older movies has always been The Incredible Melting Man. I said, I want to do like kind of my riff on on that kind of movie, because nobody's really ever done that again. You know what I mean? That was kind of a one-off thing, and probably with good reason. But I love that movie. I was first introduced to it in the pages of Starlog magazine before there was even a Fangoria, and so I wanted to do something to pay tribute to it, but also, I mean, as we put our own stamp on it. But that was basically a year. I mean, it was pretty much a year ago, last year, that we had gotten the script. Everything came together very fast, as James can attest to. I mean, we hammered out the treatments. He got a script written, and we were just sort of off and running.
So, James, what was your reaction upon reading the script? There are some scenes you're involved in here, and again, we don't want to give much away. We'll say why we want to give much away here in a few moments, because actually audiences are going to get to see this very, very soon.
Right.
So we don't want to give away any surprises, but you take the brunt of the majority of the gruesome effects, shall we say?
I mean, basically what it comes down to is I've got nobody to blame but myself, because I wrote it. So it's one of those where my ego kind of took over, where it's like, well, of course I'm playing the lead. Well, the lead in this goes through a lot of physical changes. And I was always, for most of JR's movies, I was the go-to guy for wearing a lot of effects, but I was also in my teens and 20s then. It's a completely different animal when you're 50. So it's like, so it was, once I was in the makeup, there were many a time where he had to remind me, well, you wrote this. You're the one that got nobody to blame but yourself.
To his credit, he complained very little. I mean, I had some friends of ours, mutual friends of ours, that I showed the movie to, when they were here at the end of the year, and they were just like shocked that James let me do all the stuff that we did to him. But he put himself in that position by writing the script. So
that's very true. You're right. You're 1,000% right. You only have yourself to blame for that.
Yeah,
for sure. How much, James? And I think I know the answer to this already, but we kind of have to touch on it, because how much did the COVID pandemic play into this for you? I mean, with the whole things with the shot and the people's fear of it transforming them or marking them in some way so they can be tracked or traced. Obviously, you pulled a lot of that just from current events, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's one of those things, too, where it's a subject matter that is close to everybody has an opinion on it. So when we had come up with the treatment, we were both very conscious, where it's like, it doesn't matter whatever our own beliefs are have to be left at the door. We kind of have to have an even keel of kind of poking fun at both sides. We don't want to upset anybody, because then you lose half your audience. And
Right.
I truly believe that we were able to basically poke fun of it in a way that's not going to. I think the only thing that's going to upset people about this movie is just some of the more offensive scenes.
For me, I think it was more like going back to where I started with something like The Dead Next Door. I had, in that movie, I had come up with like the idea of the protesters for zombie rights, and and as a person, I sort of have a general like distrust in government and science and corporations and that kind of stuff. So that all that stuff's just sort of, it was like a melting pot of ideas that kind of was the background of what we did. But the collaboration was fantastic, and we came up. James wrote the whole thing, but we put in an equal amount of story into it, to come up.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And this was sincerely probably. Not only was it probably one of the most enjoyable collaborations, but it was quick. I still am shocked how quickly the project came together.
Yeah. And how long did you shoot? Since we've gone there, how long will you actually shoot? Actual shooting days? What were we looking at?
One thing I didn't want to do, I had gotten used to in the full moon days of shooting things in less than a week, and I did not want to do that, because that's just that limits you right out of the gate as to what you can do. So we started shooting at the end of March of last year, and it was during spring break, and it was specifically mainly because I was getting my family involved. Both my wife and my kids were involved in the movie, and so they were out of school, and my wife took off work, so it was like we were all available as well as everybody else who was working on it. So we did like I think 7 days that first week, and that was mostly interiors because the weather still wasn't cooperating. And then we came back in the beginning of May and shot 7 or 8 days. So it was like 14, 15 days, something like that. And we did a few pickup shots here and there, some things we wanted to redo and stuff like that. But it was pretty much the perfect schedule. I mean, we were constantly rushing around, of course, because you always are, but mainly because I was doing too much coverage and too many takes of things. But
It's better to have too much than too little, though, in all fairness.
Well, I didn't just direct it, I shot and I lit it too. And we had a very small crew. So everything kind of, once Lonnie switched, or James, I'm sorry, I keep calling him by his into actor mode, I was kind of like left to my own devices to carry this thing between myself and the assistant director. So it was kind of like, I wanted to make it manageable, and the only way there was no way I could have shot it in less days because I was just too many tasks to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one of the, I have to say, I've been fortunate enough to see this already. And one of the things I loved, much like you did with The Dead Next Door back in the day, is used a lot of local establishments for your shots, which is so much fun. Anybody who watches a film from the Akron Canton area, you're gonna be like, oh my God, I drive by there every day, or stuff like that, which is a little special treat for those of us that are fortunate to live close enough to where you film these things. But did you find 23 years later, when it came to shooting locally like you did, anything different or changed? Did you have to be a little less kamikaze in how you filmed? Because I seem to remember The Dead Next Door was a little bit of a guerrilla filmmaking to a degree. Well,
locally we never had a problem, but when you're talking about zombies on the White House fence and that kind of stuff, that was probably hot water for that. But no, I mean, this one we kind of wrote it with the idea of, okay, we can get this. Like there's a scene at I think you're referring to that at a place called That's a Rap Shack down here in North Canton. It's like an outdoor, they make really tasty wraps, and I knew the owners of them because their daughter and my daughter are friends, so that was kind of an easy get. We just said, hey, we're shooting this movie, what do you think? And he's a movie fan. You can see their signage there in the just the name of the place alone. So we wrote it for what we knew we could get. I guess that was the rather than make it difficult on ourselves. And a lot of the locations, I mean, literally I enlisted my grandmother's house, my cousin's house, my father's house. We shot in my house. I mean, most of the locations were places we knew we could get. James had a guy named Richard Russell, who's a filmmaker down in Massillon, and he worked part-time at a convenience store. So we knew we could get a convenience store. So we wrote the convenience store into it. So it was all just, that part of it came together really easily. I don't think we really had any location problems because we kind of had it all mapped out as we were doing the treatments.
No great running from the cop stories, huh? Okay, that's what I was going for. I was looking for a good running from the cop story.
Not on this one. I mean, well, I guess the closest we came is there's a lengthy dialogue scene towards the end that takes place in a car. The two characters are driving around, and we shot it in my neighborhood, which I'm back kind of like in a private area. It's not it's not like the main drag or anything. And so we're driving around, and I have the picture car, and they're in the picture car with my son who's making sure the sound is going, and I'm in my Ford Explorer with James and Matt Diltz Williams, my assistant director, are driving, and I'm in the back kind of hanging out of the car looking at the feed from the camera on an iPad just so I can make sure that they're kind of doing what we do. And we went around the neighborhood so many times that somebody apparently called the sheriff's department.
Damn nosy neighbors.
So it took them I think it was like an hour and a half, and we were already done. We got everything. But sure enough, the sheriff showed up. I think it was two. Wasn't it two cars?
It was two. Yeah.
Yeah. They show up here, and they're like, we got to complain about. So actually, we did get the cops called.
In fairness, though, with that, they were nice as can be. I mean, they were absolutely accommodating.
I mean, at that point, we were done. We had shot what we needed, so it's not. And we really weren't bothering anybody. It was just, I think at one point we stopped in between setups, and the one character was dressed in a police uniform, and I think that's what.
It just looks suspicious, huh?
Yeah, right. What's going on? And they're going around too many times, going around the same neighborhood, the same.
Sounds like you're a victim of if you see something, say something, is what it sounds like to me.
Right.
Well, like when I was shooting, and that's one of the differences from 20, 30 years ago, is you could get away with a lot more because people just didn't care. They're like,
it's true.
When I was growing up in Springfield Township in my neighborhood, I was always out there with my Super 8 camera, and the neighbors were just like, "Oh, it's that Bookwalter kid. He's fake blood on people again." And but not everybody in my current neighborhood knows what I did doing. So
Right.
Gotcha. So let's veer for a moment into the effects. This is a gooey mess. It just is, right? I mean, I think and again, we don't want to give any of the gags away. But who handled the effects? Did you dream these things up, or were you just kind of throwing stuff on and seeing what looked good? I mean, tell me a
well,
little bit about it.
a little of both. I think the initial treatment was maybe a little more ambitious and I was kind of skeptical that we were ever going to pull that off for the budget. But we hired a guy out of Buffalo, New York, that kind of did not work out. I mean, he kind of came and did 2 days out of the first week of shooting and delivered some okay stuff, but kind of dropped the ball on the others. So that kind of necessitated him, we just kind of swept him to the curb and said, well, let's, what else can we do? We got to find somebody to do the rest of this stuff. Cause the bulk of it was that second week of shooting in May. So James and I kind of, put our heads together and we said, well, we've got this person on the crew and this person on the crew that are kind of very resourceful. And they, we had a gal named Emily Salmons who was doing straight makeup, who had graduated from Tom Savini's makeup school years ago and had never really pursued it, but she kind of knew a little bit of what she was doing. She had that 2 years of training. And then another guy from named David Milchick from Ohio who had again, had some knowledge of some of these things. So between them and James, since he was the guy that was, wearing the stuff, they kind of figured it out. That was the bottom line. It wasn't, when I set out to do it, I was really looking for a straight sort of riff on the Incredible Melting Man. They kept asking me, what do you want him to look like? I'm like, this. So, I'm showing them pictures from it. So that is not exactly what I got, which is a good thing, because what we got is something that's a lot more unique and interesting.
Yeah, and I would argue that I think that you got more of that than you think you did. I really do. What was it like for you, James, having to go through that? Did you spend days in that get up?
Oh, it was horrible. It was absolutely miserable. But I mean, in all actuality, the hardest part was the fact that once the makeup is on, they have to coat me in this material called Ultra Slime that actually activates with water. So getting it off actually takes longer than putting it on. So like I would be in the makeup chair typically 2 hours, 3 hours. And then
that, but yeah, it was something like that.
And then it would literally take me the same amount of time to get the stuff off of me. And it wasn't just a process where you could shower. I literally would have to sit in a tub and just have it dissolve off. So by the end of me being in the tub, it's like I'm in a big soup. So yeah, it was not pleasant in the least bit.
I think the saving grace was there. We kind of had planned it where there were kind of 4 stages of this transition that he goes through. His character gets this vaccine, and then he kind of goes through the 4 stages of progression in the story. And wasn't the 3rd and 4th were sort of similar, but we kind of managed to schedule the majority of that stuff for 2-3 days, whatever it was.
Right.
Misery was reduced at least to some degree, but
well, it looks great. It really does. You guys did a fantastic job on it. Before we move on talking about the road show, which is the primary thing we want to get out in this conversation, JR, what are you thinking? We got more in the pipeline? You gonna do more?
A lot of things hinge on what happens with this one, because I think that's part of the reason. I'm not one of those. I know a lot of independent filmmakers who go out and raise money and don't really care about getting that money back to their investors. I've never been one of those people. I kind of hate to. I don't want to go and get a bunch of money from somebody, make something, and then not go with my hands and go, I'm sorry, we didn't get the money back. And it's a tough business, this business. So there has to be, not doing it for money necessarily. You want to, do it for the fun of it too. But at the same time, at some point you have to have some, you got to get that money back.
Yeah. You got some responsibility to the investors. Huh?
And in this case, this was all my money so I didn't have anybody else, to rely on financially. It was just myself and my wife that basically bankrolled the thing. So it's, if we don't get it back, we just, we only have ourselves to blame again.
You're eating Kraft macaroni and cheese for 2 years, huh?
Right.
Well, and that actually is a perfect segue into how you are is the right word distributing this? I'm not sure if distributing it is the correct phrasing that I want to use, but how you're getting this in front of the eyeballs of the fans. You've chosen to go with a roadshow approach where you're making these events really all around the country. Actually, I think we can say all around the world at this point, right?
Well, we do have so far one international screening in Germany, which that's kind of at the end of this whole roadshow. But that really started, the theatrical thing really started because through my company Makeflix, I occasionally put out newer titles and they never do as well as I would like. I've handled some sales for James's 2 movies and other filmmakers that he's brought me. And back in the day, 23 years ago, we had Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, Tower Records, Family Video, Best Buy, all these places, were willing to buy this stuff and did. All those places carried my stuff at one time or another. But now you don't have any of that. So, and you don't even have Netflix DVD, which was, one of the predominant back in the Tempe DVD days. That was one of the ways that we got, we're justified making a lot of stuff was because you could just, you knew you were going to sell X number of DVDs and then you had all the other avenues too. But all that stuff's gone. So I was kind of like, well, how do we build an audience for this thing? And so I think was my stupid idea. I was like, well, let's play it in some theaters. Maybe we play it in a dozen theaters. We get the buzz out and get people to know about it. And then it, hopefully it'll snowball so that then when we do get around to releasing it on physical media or streaming, that was kind of the impetus of it. What I didn't want to happen, and what I see happen so much with the indie films now, is people watching them on their phones, on Tubi or whatever, with commercials and all that kind of. It's just not I do it too. We all do it, but it's just, to me, it's not a great experience, and certainly not. I was raised in the late 60s, 70s when you went to the movies. You know what I mean? You went to the theater, you got your popcorn and your drinks, and it was an experience. So that's kind of what we want to do with this roadshow tour, is make an experience out of it. And I know there's a younger generation out there that they like their experiences. They like their concerts and their, other things that they go to. So we're hoping maybe they'll, slip this one into the mix too.
I think it's a great idea, and from my understanding of it, I mean, obviously you're going to get to see the movie, right? And then I think most of the screenings will have some type of a live Q&A afterwards.
Mm-hmm. I think all of them. All of them. We'll have a merch table. We've got some cool tchotchkes like syringe pens and stickers and posters and T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. So
a little bit of swag.
Yeah,
absolutely.
James and I will be there for all the screenings. The first week, we've got a couple of in Pittsburgh. We'll have Floyd Ewing Jr., who is one of the co-stars of the movie, who started with me on Dead Next Door, Robot Ninja, and Skinned Alive all those years ago. And Sasha Graham, who plays the doctor in the movie, she'll be joining us for a couple of the dates too. So that's part of the fun of it, is if anybody that is fans of all these other movies, they can come out and hang with us and see it with us, essentially. As part of
and James will be showing up in full makeup at all showings.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Count me in.
Something like that. So we were just batting it around. It's like, what could we do? Like, maybe we'll make like a life-size, maquette of him or something in the makeup. It would be cool. People can take pictures, but that was a little ambitious.
Yeah, that seems to be a bit ambitious, especially for poor James.
Yeah. I think we talked about that for about a second and a half, if I'm not mistaken.
Somebody wanted him to autograph something. It's like they're going to get more of that blood slime all over.
Right.
So between the two of you, I know the first roadshow viewing is, I believe, a week from today, right?
Week from today, yeah.
Tell us about, where's it at? How do people get tickets for it? Give us all the info.
The Harris Theater in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, downtown Pittsburgh, which ironically, I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh right out of high school and college. So that's kind of like my second home to begin with. So it's kind of cool to kick things off there. I think can't remember, the screening times are always different, but I think it starts at 7 or 7:30. And you can buy tickets at the box office. But if I were you, just, because there's only a couple hundred seats. You never know. It could sell out. You can go to there. We have a Facebook and Instagram accounts, which are, constantly throwing this information out. But there's Facebook events already. You can go and RSVP, or there's advanced ticket links on there for each of the, venues for the first week and some of the later ones too. But I mean, it's pretty expansive. We're starting there. We're going, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, Philadelphia, the Catskills in New York,
Maryland,
Worcester, Massachusetts, and then Baltimore, Maryland. That's first 6. I mean, it's like one screening every night, so we're going to be.
That's a lot of traveling around there, gentlemen.
A lot of traveling, and then February we've got a handful of dates in Ohio. We'll be in Akron at the Nightlight on February 10th.
Oh yeah, great little theater. Love the Nightlight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll be in Inglewood, which is between Dayton and Columbus, on the February 17th. We'll be in Toledo, I believe, on February 23rd. And I think it looks like we're going to do something in New Jersey and New York at the end of February as well. So those dates are pending, but
they can find all that in the Facebook group or by going to makeflix.com. Do you have anything at Makeflix on this? Or no?
There's I just added it yesterday. There's a banner, and if you click on that banner on makeflix.com, it'll show you the current schedule of where we're going to be. So after that, I mean, after February, March and April I'm going to be out west, down in Texas, all the way up to Minneapolis, Kansas City, Wichita, Denver's coming in April. And so there'll be plenty of opportunities to watch this regardless of where you live.
You traveling around all the shows, James, or are you just going to be at select ones?
I'm going to be at select ones. I'm probably not going to be able to hit the West Coast ones. But I will definitely be at I'll definitely be in the first wave from the 27th until the 1st, and most of the screenings in February as well.
Excellent. Well, and as of right now, the only way, are you going to be selling copies of this Mayberry at the shows?
Only in one format, VHS. We have this very
nice
limited edition that is made by Future Video, who's done some VHS releases of some, and it's really, I mean, the packaging and everything is very slick. So, and
we will be signing them at the shows as well for free.
That's very cool. That really is very cool. Very throwback. I like it.
Yeah, that's one of our. I was kind of like, well, it'd be nice to do the Blu-ray, but the minute you do the Blu-ray, it's going to get.
It's everywhere. Yeah, I was going to say, as soon as you do that, it's all over the fucking.
Oh, my thought was VHS collectors, the way I do, they love to. Not only is it a little harder to pirate it that way, but it's also the audience is less likely to do it. They're buying it. They want to enjoy it in that format. So
fantastic. And I'm sure at the end of this whole road show, as we work through the year, at some point we're going to get a Blu-ray or a streaming debut. Someone's going to pick this up. It's going to happen.
Well, there's that possibility. I mean, like I said, I did make it just to sell through my own Makeflix, and Tempe Digital.
Right. Yeah. So obviously you'll get it there, but I'm talking as far as like a streaming.
Yeah, I mean, nobody else wants it. I've got all that stuff already set up, but
already ready to rock and roll.
My plan is it's going to be my first 4K Blu-ray. That's
I like it. Very nice. So we know you can get all of JR stuff through makeflix.com, and of course there will be a link in the accompanying stuff that comes with this interview. James, how about your films? You got a website you want to let everybody know about?
You can get all of my films through Makeflix as well. JR has both Her Name Was Krista and Brimstone Incorporated on Blu-ray and DVD and special editions. So go to Makeflix for
fantastic.
All the stuff.
One-stop shop.
One-stop shop. That's it. Yeah.
We will our own movies at the road show as well. If somebody
if
you're looking for something in particular that you want autographed, we'll be there. So.
Sounds great. Well, I was trying to keep this to a half hour, and we're at 28 minutes and 23 seconds. So I think we have accomplished what we came to do, gentlemen. I appreciate you stopping in and doing this with me today, and looking forward to help getting the word out about Side Effects Mayberry.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dave. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. You have a good rest of your day, gentlemen.
You too.
Gruesome Magazine.